I need a personal medic, Dela said, moving toward a bar and pouring 2 glasses of whiskey. She offered one to Paris, who took it automatically. Someone I can trust. Someone who isn't afraid of blood and doesn't ask questions. I'm not a medic. I dropped out of nursing school. But you know enough to treat basic wounds. That's all I need. Dela sipped her whiskey, watching Paris over the rim of the glass. I'll pay you well. Very well. Enough to clear your debts and then some. Paris's heart skipped. How do you know about my debts? I know everything about you, Paris Martinez. Where you work, where you live, where you went to school. How much you owe and how little you earn. I know you're drowning and I'm offering you a lifeline. Paris should have been angry about the invasion of privacy. Instead, she just felt tired. And if I say no? Then my men will continue to watch you from a distance, and you'll continue to struggle with bills you can't pay. But you'll be safe at least. I protect what's mine. I'm not yours, Paris said quietly. Dela's eyes darkened with something that made Paris's skin prickle with awareness. Not yet. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with promise and threat. Paris took a long drink of whiskey, letting the burn ground her. If I agree to this, she said slowly, I'm not your property. I'm an employee, nothing more. And I want a contract. Everything in writing. Dela's lips curved in that not quite smile again. Agreed. My lawyer will draw something up. In the meantime, she moved to a desk and pulled out an envelope, offering it to Paris. Consider this a signing bonus. Paris opened the envelope and nearly dropped it. It was full of cash. More cash than she'd seen in her entire life. At least $20,000 if she was estimating correctly. This is too much, she breathed. It's exactly what you're worth, Dela corrected. Take it. Pay your bills. Get some decent clothes. You start tomorrow. Paris looked up from the money, meeting those dark, hungry eyes. She knew she should walk away. Knew this was dangerous, possibly fatal. But the money in her hands represented freedom. From debt, from poverty, from the constant grinding anxiety of not knowing how she'd survive another month. And maybe in some small, shameful part of herself, she wanted to see what would happen if she stayed in Dela's orbit. Wanted to understand the pull she felt toward this cold, dangerous woman. Tomorrow, she agreed. Dela's smile widened, and for the first time, Paris saw real warmth in it. It transformed her face, making her look younger, almost vulnerable. Welcome to my world, Paris, Dela said, raising her glass in a toast. Try not to get killed. Paris quickly learned that being Dela's personal medic meant much more than treating occasional wounds. It meant living in the penthouse. For your safety, Dela insisted. It meant learning to sleep through the sounds of late-night meetings and early morning phone calls. It meant becoming part of a world she'd never imagined existed. Dela's organization was vast and complex. Paris didn't ask questions about the specifics. She had a feeling ignorance was the only thing keeping her alive. But she couldn't help noticing the constant flow of people through the penthouse. Men in expensive suits, women with hard eyes. All of them treating Dela with a mixture of respect and fear that made Paris uneasy. The guards were the most surprising part. Dela had a rotation of 6 men who watched the penthouse in shifts. They were all large, all dangerous looking, all completely devoted to their boss. Paris had expected them to treat her with contempt or suspicion, but instead they'd given her a nickname, Boss Lady. It's because you're the only one who can tell the boss what to do, Marcus, one of the guards, explained with a grin. He was the youngest of the group, barely out of his 20s, with a scar across his jaw and surprisingly kind eyes. I don't tell her what to do, Paris protested. They were in the kitchen. Paris had taken over cooking duty after discovering that Dela lived on takeout and black coffee. I just strongly suggest things related to her health. Same thing, Marcus said, stealing a piece of the chicken she was chopping. You told her to stop drinking so much whiskey, and she actually cut back. You told her to eat 3 meals a day, and now she sits down for breakfast. We've been working for her for years, and we've never seen her listen to anyone like that. Paris felt her cheeks warm. She'd noticed Dela's terrible habits, the skipped meals, the excess alcohol, the way she worked herself to exhaustion. It had bothered her in a way she couldn't quite explain, so she'd started interfering, making breakfast. bringing water during late-night work sessions, gently nagging about basic self-care. And surprisingly, terrifyingly, Dela had listened. "She's probably just humoring me," Paris muttered. "No," Marcus said seriously. "She likes you. Really likes you. We can tell." Before Paris could respond to that unsettling statement, Dela herself walked into the kitchen. She'd just come from a meeting, still dressed in one of her expensive suits, her hair slightly mussed. There was blood on her knuckles. "Who did you hit this time?" Paris asked with a sigh, already moving toward the first aid kit she now kept in every room. "Romano's nephew," Dela said calmly. "He needed to understand the consequences of disrespect." "Sit," Paris ordered, grabbing her supplies. "And stop punching people. Your hands are going to be permanently damaged." "Yes, boss lady," Dela said, and there was amusement in her voice. Marcus made himself scarce, wisely removing himself from the domestic scene. Paris grabbed Dela's hand, examining the split knuckles with a critical eye. "Not too bad, but they'd need cleaning and bandaging." "Hold still," she murmured, beginning the now familiar ritual of tending to Dela's wounds. This close, she could smell Dela's perfume mixed with gunpowder and blood. Could see the tension in her jaw, the shadows under her eyes. Dela worked too hard, pushed herself too far. It made something in Paris's chest ache with a feeling she refused to name. "You need to sleep," she said quietly, wrapping gauze around Dela's knuckles. "When was the last time you got a full 8 hours?" "I don't remember," Dela admitted. Her dark eyes were fixed on Paris's face with that unsettling intensity. "I don't sleep well." "Nightmares," Paris guessed. "Memories. It's different." Paris tied off the bandage and looked up, meeting Dela's gaze. There was something raw in those dark eyes, something that made Paris forget to be afraid. "Tell me," she said softly. "Why would I do that?" "Because you're exhausted and you need to talk to someone, and I'm here." For a long moment Dela just stared at her. Then slowly she began to speak. She told Paris about the massacre, about coming home to find her entire family dead. Her parents, her 3 siblings, even the household staff. About being 16 years old and completely alone in the world. About clawing her way up through the underworld, building her empire on rage and grief and determination.
You have reached this point. Please subscribe for more. Thank you.
She spoke without emotion, her voice flat and cold. But Paris saw the pain beneath the ice, saw the wounded girl hiding behind the dangerous woman. When Dela finished, Paris did something reckless. She reached out and took Dela's unbandaged hand, threading their fingers together. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm so sorry that happened to you." Dela looked down at their joined hands, her expression unreadable. "Everyone I've ever loved has died. That's why I don't love anymore." "That's the saddest thing I've ever heard," Paris whispered. "It's survival," Dela corrected. But she didn't pull her hand away. They sat like that for a long moment, hands intertwined, the weight of Dela's confession hanging between them. Paris knew she should let go, should maintain some professional distance. But she couldn't make herself do it. Finally, Dela stood, gently extracting her hand. "Thank you for listening." "Anytime," Paris said, and meant it. Dela paused at the doorway, looking back. "The guards are planning to ask you to teach them to read. Some of them never learned properly." Paris blinked at the abrupt change of subject. "Oh, of course I'll help them. If that's okay with you." "It's more than okay," Dela said softly. "You're good for them. Good for all of us." She disappeared before Paris could respond, leaving Paris alone in the kitchen with her racing heart and confused feelings. Over the next few weeks, Paris settled into her strange new life. She treated Dela's wounds. There were always wounds, bullet grazes, and knife cuts and split knuckles from fights. She cooked meals that Dela actually sat down to eat. She started tutoring sessions with the guards, teaching them to read and write in the penthouse's formal dining room. The guards were surprisingly eager students. Marcus was the quickest learner, but even Dimitri, the oldest and scariest of them, worked diligently at his lessons. They called her boss lady with increasing affection, and Paris found herself genuinely liking these dangerous men. She also found herself falling into an easy rhythm with Dela. They had breakfast together most mornings, Dela working on her tablet while Paris read the newspaper. They spent evenings in comfortable silence, Dela handling business while Paris studied medical textbooks. Dela had bought her an entire library's worth without being asked. It was domestic and strange and more comfortable than Paris wanted to admit, but there was always an undercurrent of something else. The way Dela's eyes lingered on her. The accidental touches that felt deliberate. The growing awareness that made Paris's skin prickle with heat whenever Dela was near. Paris tried to ignore it. She was an employee, nothing more. Getting involved with her employer, especially one as dangerous as Dela, would be incredibly stupid. But her body didn't seem to care about logic. She found herself noticing everything about Dela. The way she moved, the rare times she smiled, the vulnerability that flickered in her eyes when she thought no one was watching. She found herself wanting to touch, to comfort, to break through that cold exterior and find the warmth beneath. It was dangerous, possibly fatal, and completely irresistible. The tension finally broke on a quiet Tuesday evening. Dela had come back from a meeting bleeding more seriously than usual, a knife wound to her upper arm that needed actual stitching. Paris had sent the guards away and set up in Dela's bedroom, where the light was best. "This is going to hurt," Paris warned, threading the needle with shaking hands. She'd practiced suturing on oranges and chicken breasts, but this was the first time she'd done it on a real person. "I've had worse," Dela said. She'd taken off her bra, completely unself-conscious about her partial emptiness. Her body was a map of scars, old wounds that told stories of violence and survival. Paris tried to focus on the task at hand, but it was impossible not to notice the smooth expanse of Dela's skin, the lean muscle of her shoulders, the way her huge apples rose and fell with each breath. Professional. Stay professional. She cleaned the wound, then carefully began to stitch. Dela didn't flinch, didn't make a sound. She just watched Paris's face with that intense focus that made Paris's hands shake even more. "You're thinking too hard," Dela said quietly. "I can practically hear your thoughts." "I'm trying not to mess this up," Paris admitted. "You won't. You're good at this. Good at taking care of people." Dela paused. "Good at taking care of me." Paris's hand stilled. She looked up, meeting Dela's dark eyes, and found something there that made her breath catch. "What?" Unfiltered and undisguised. "Dela," she whispered. "Tell me to stop," Dela said, reaching up with her good arm to cup Paris's face. "Tell me you don't feel this too." Paris should have said it. Should have maintained boundaries, protected herself. But she'd never been good at self-preservation. "I can't," she admitted. Dela's thumb brushed across Paris's lower lip, and Paris's eyes fluttered closed at the touch. "Look at me." Paris opened her eyes. "I don't do relationships," Dela said quietly. "I don't do soft. I'll probably break your heart." "I know," Paris whispered. "And you still want this?" Paris leaned forward, closing the distance between them, and answered with a kiss. Dela's lips were softer than she'd imagined, warmer. The kiss started gentle, almost tentative, but quickly deepened into something hungry and desperate. Dela's hand tangled in Paris's hair, pulling her closer. Paris gasped against her mouth and Dela took advantage, deepening the kiss until Paris was dizzy with it. They broke apart, both breathing hard. Paris looked at the half-finished stitches and laughed shakily. "I should probably finish this first." "Probably," Dela agreed, but her eyes were dark with promise. Paris completed the suturing with shaking hands, hyper-aware of every place their bodies touched. When she tied off the final stitch and bandaged the wound, Dela immediately pulled her back in for another kiss, this one even more demanding than the first. Paris let herself get lost in it, in the taste of Dela's mouth and the feel of her hands on her body. Dela was surprisingly gentle despite the hunger in her kiss, her touches reverent rather than rough. She guided Paris back onto the bed, covering her body with her own. Paris arched into the contact, gasping as Dela's lips found her throat. "Tell me what you want," Dela murmured against her skin. "You," Paris breathed. "I want you."